So tonight we're going to talk about something you rarely see in the fairy tales and the grand sagas of kings and queens. The stark, unforgiving reality of childhood in the Middle Ages. Forget the romanticized images of valiant young knights and demure princesses. The truth was often brutal, short, and profoundly challenging. Tonight, we're stripping away the myth and inviting you into a world where surviving infancy was a miracle and playtime often meant contributing to the family's meager existence. Before we dive deep into those ancient days, do me a favor. Like this story, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below with where you're listening from and what time it is. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blanket up tight, and let your imagination carry you back, far beyond the comforts of your modern world. You are born into a world utterly alien to your own, a world of deep shadows and rough textures where the very air you breathe is thick with the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and unwashed bodies. Your arrival isn't a pristine, sterile event in a brightly lit hospital room, surrounded by hushed professionals. No, your birth is a raw, visceral struggle within the confines of a dim, often crowded hut or a cold stone chamber, attended by a local midwife whose knowledge is a blend of ancient remedies, practical experience, and superstition. Imagine the pain your mother endures, not dulled by modern medicine, her cries echoing through the thin walls, perhaps alongside the bleating of a nearby goat or the distant bark of a dog. You are born onto a bed of straw or perhaps a worn blanket, not sterile sheets. The light, if any, comes from a flickering rushlight or a small, smoky fire in the hearth, casting dancing shadows that make the faces around you seem like specters. The very first moments of your life are fraught with peril. The world is cold, a shock after the warmth of your mother's womb. Your skin, slick and vulnerable, is exposed to drafts and grime. The midwife, with hands that are likely calloused from a lifetime of labor, not sanitized by soap and water, handles you with a practiced but firm grip. There's no immediate concern for precise measurements or sophisticated health checks. The primary focus is simply whether you draw breath, whether you cry out, a testament to your life force in a world where so many infants arrive still and silent. You are quickly washed, perhaps with water drawn from a communal well, water that might carry unseen dangers. Your umbilical cord is tied and cut not with a sterilized clamp, but likely with a thread and a knife that has seen far more prosaic uses. The risk of infection, an invisible killer, begins immediately. Once cleaned, you are swaddled, a practice deeply ingrained in medieval life. Picture yourself tightly bound from neck to toe in strips of cloth, so securely that your limbs are held rigidly straight. This isn't just for warmth. It's believed to protect your delicate body from harm, to ensure your limbs grow straight, and to prevent you from harming yourself in your uncontrolled movements. You cannot flail, you cannot stretch, you cannot explore with your hands or feet. Your world is compressed, constrained, a warm but unyielding cocoon. This constant binding, sometimes for months on end, limits your ability to develop motor skills, to push yourself up, to roll over, to crawl. Your early interactions with the world are through sight, sound, and the muffled sensation of being held, not through independent movement. Feeding is another challenge. If your mother is able to nurse, you are fortunate. Breastfeeding is the primary source of nutrition and protection against disease, but even this is not without its difficulties. A mother suffering from poor nutrition herself might struggle to produce enough milk. The concept of proper latch, burping, or regular feeding schedules as we understand them simply doesn't exist. You feed when you cry, when your mother can spare the time between her own arduous duties. If your mother cannot nurse, perhaps due to illness or insufficient milk, your chances of survival plummet dramatically. Wet nurses, if available and affordable, offer a lifeline, but they come with their own risks: the transfer of disease, the quality of their own diet, their availability. Artificial feeding is a grim prospect. Animal milk, gruel, or pottage. often contaminated or lacking the essential nutrients, fed from crude vessels or even directly from a piece of cloth soaked in liquid, leading to frequent illness and malnourishment. Disease is a constant, invisible predator stalking every infant. You have no vaccines, no antibiotics, no understanding of germ theory. A simple cold can quickly escalate into a fatal pneumonia. Diarrhea, dysentery, measles, smallpox, whooping cough. These are not distant threats, but ever-present realities. Your immune system, still developing, is constantly under siege. Fever is a terrifying sign, often leading to convulsions and death. Your parents watch over you with a mix of deep love and an almost fatalistic resignation. They have seen siblings, neighbors' children, and perhaps even their own previous infants succumb. The death of a child is a common occurrence, so frequent that it shapes parental attachment itself. It's not that they don't love you, but the constant specter of loss might lead to a degree of emotional distance, a self-protective mechanism against the inevitable heartache. They might delay naming you or give you a temporary name until you've passed a certain precarious age, typically your first birthday, which is a monumental milestone. Your environment itself is a breeding ground for illness. The family home, whether a peasant's hovel or a noble's castle, is far from hygienic. Animals often share living spaces, bringing fleas, lice, and diseases. Waste disposal is rudimentary, leading to stagnant water and decaying matter. Personal hygiene is basic, and clean water is a luxury. You, as an infant, lie in your swaddling, sometimes unchanged for days, leading to painful rashes and infections. The stench of human and animal waste, unwashed bodies, stale food, and smoke from the hearth is your constant companion. This isn't just an unpleasant smell. It's a testament to the microbial world you are forced to navigate with a fragile body. Your parents are not just raising you, they are struggling to survive themselves. For a peasant family, every waking hour is dedicated to farming, foraging, and maintaining their meager existence. Your mother, even after the arduous labor of childbirth, might be back in the fields within days or weeks, carrying you on her back, or leaving you in the care of an older sibling, often barely a child themselves. You might spend your days wrapped in a blanket, placed in a corner of the field while your mother hoes rows, or left in the care of an older sister, perhaps only 5 or 6 years old, who herself knows little more than the bare necessities of keeping you alive. This constant exposure to the elements, the biting wind, the scorching sun, the chilling rain, further weakens your delicate constitution. For a noble child, life might seem superficially more comfortable, but it carries its own distinct set of dangers. You might have a dedicated wet nurse, but you could still be separated from your mother for long periods, perhaps sent to another noble household for fostering at a young age, disrupting early bonding. Castles, while grand, are cold, damp, and also unhygienic. Drafts seep through stone walls, rats and mice are constant companions, and sanitation, though slightly better, is still primitive compared to modern standards. Disease does not discriminate entirely based on social class. Noble children too fall victim to plague, smallpox, and childhood illnesses. The expectation for a noble child, particularly a boy, is to grow up strong and capable, often leading to early, harsh training and a lack of emotional softness. Imagine yourself just weeks or months old, lying there, seeing the world through the narrow slits of your swaddling, your senses bombarded by smells and sounds that would overwhelm a modern infant. The constant hum of flies, the scratching of vermin in the straw, the guttural sounds of speech, the crackle of fire, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, or the lowing of cattle. Your eyes, still learning to focus, see blurred shapes and faces illuminated by shifting, uncertain light. There are no colourful mobiles, no soft lullabies from a music box, no gentle chimes. Your lullabies are the sounds of daily medieval life, often harsh and demanding. The concept of childhood as a protected, distinct phase of life focused on play and learning is largely absent during your infancy. You are simply a fragile human being, a potential future worker, or noble, constantly battling against the overwhelming odds stacked against your survival. Your parents, if they are lucky enough to see you past your first birthday, will have endured a year of constant anxiety, of sleepless nights listening for your breath, of desperate prayers for your health. Your very existence is a testament to immense human resilience and a streak of sheer luck in a world that offers no quarter. You are not just a baby, you are a survivor, a tiny warrior in a relentless battle against disease, hunger, and the harsh indifference of a medieval existence. The fact that you are even here, breathing and aware, is a small miracle in itself, a stark reminder of the immense difference between your comfortable present and that perilous, distant past as you begin to crawl, then to walk, shedding the constricting swaddling clothes. You step out of the infant's cocoon and into a world that, while offering a semblance of freedom, immediately imposes upon you the harsh realities of medieval life. The concept of a prolonged, protected early childhood, where play and learning are paramount, is a luxury virtually unknown. Instead, your earliest years are a rapid, often brutal apprenticeship in survival and contribution. You are no longer just a mouth to feed, you are a potential pair of hands, an extra bit of strength needed to keep the family unit afloat. Imagine yourself perhaps 3 or 4 years old, a tiny figure dwarfed by the immense world around you. Your clothes are not soft, brightly coloured fabrics, but coarse, homespun wool or linen, likely hand-me-downs patched and repatched until they are stiff with dirt and wear. They itch against your skin, restrict your movements, and offer little warmth against the persistent chill that seems to permeate every dwelling. You wear simple tunics, perhaps leggings if you are fortunate, and maybe crude leather shoes if you're not barefoot, feeling the sharp stones and cold mud beneath your soles. Your playground is the village square, the farmyard, the surrounding fields, or the castle bailey, places teeming with adult activity not designed for child safety. There are no padded surfaces, no brightly coloured plastic slides. Instead, you navigate open fires, dangerous tools, deep wells, swift-flowing rivers, and potentially aggressive farm animals. A misplaced step, a moment of inattention, could mean a serious injury, a fall into murky water, or a burn that would scar you for life, if not claim it entirely. You learn caution not from warnings, but from the observation of real dangers and the painful consequences of missteps you or other children experience. Your days are not filled with organized playgroups or structured learning. Instead, you are an observer, a shadow trailing your parents, internalizing the rhythm of their lives. You watch your mother grind grain, bake bread, spin wool, tend to the garden, and care for livestock. You see your father plough the fields, mend tools, chop wood, and perhaps participate in village defense. This constant observation is your primary form of education. There are no books for most children, no alphabet primers. Learning is experiential, practical, and immediate. You learn by doing, by imitating, by being told, often curtly, what needs to be done. By the age of 5 or 6, the expectation shifts from observation to active participation. You are no longer just a burden, you are a junior worker. For a peasant child, this means early mornings long before the sun crests the horizon, the air still damp and frigid. You might be tasked with simple but crucial chores. Carrying water from the well, the heavy wooden bucket sloshing against your legs, threatening to spill its precious contents. Gathering firewood from the forest, your small hands struggling with branches that scratch and snag your worn clothes. Tending to the chickens or geese, making sure they don't stray too far. Collecting eggs that feel warm and fragile in your palms. Herding sheep or goats, a task that demands vigilance and patience, often for hours on end, exposed to the elements. Imagine the sensory experience of these chores, the rough, splintered wood of the bucket handle, the cold bite of the well water on your exposed hands in winter, the damp smell of the forest floor as you search for kindling, The prickle of straw against your face as you gather eggs, the insistent bleating of a lost lamb. Your muscles ache, your fingers grow stiff with cold, your feet become sore from endless walking over uneven ground. You learn resilience not through choice, but necessity. There's no negotiation, no refusal. These tasks are essential for the family's survival. If you don't do them, someone else must, or the family suffers. For children born into a noble household, life might appear less physically demanding, but it comes with its own set of rigid expectations and early training. While you might not be fetching water or herding animals, you are still expected to learn the intricacies of courtly life, etiquette, and the specific roles dictated by your gender and status. A young noble girl by 5 or 6 might be learning basic needlework, how to manage a household inventory, how to be demure and obedient. She might be exposed to the tedious routines of domestic management within the castle, learning to oversee servants, organize supplies, and understand the social hierarchy. Her play might involve dolls made of cloth or wood, but always with an undercurrent of preparing her for her future role as a wife and mistress of a household. A young, noble boy, meanwhile, even at an early age, begins his preparation for knighthood or church service. His games might involve miniature wooden swords and shields, mimicking the older boys and men-at-arms. He observes the training in the bailey, the handling of horses, the practice of archery. His days are filled with lessons in basic Latin from a resident priest or tutor, learning to read psalms, perhaps rudimentary arithmetic for estate management. He learns to ride a pony, not for pleasure, but for practical application in war or travel. Discipline is strict, often involving corporal punishment, to instill obedience and fortitude. He might be sent away to another noble household as a page or fosterling as young as 7, a profound separation from his birth family, thrown into a new, unfamiliar environment where he is at the bottom of the pecking order, expected to serve and learn. This early fostering is not an adventure. It's a critical part of his upbringing, designed to forge loyalty, skills, and strategic alliances. But it's often emotionally isolating. You are not truly seen as a child in the modern sense, but as a smaller version of an adult or an apprentice adult. Your opinion holds little weight. Your feelings are rarely openly discussed or validated. Emotional expression, especially for boys, is often suppressed in favor of stoicism and resilience. You learn to internalize hardship, to endure pain, and to understand your place in a rigid social hierarchy. This early conditioning shapes your entire outlook on life. There is no entitlement, no expectation of comfort or ease. Life is a struggle, and you are expected to pull your weight, no matter how small or young you are. The lack of formal education for the vast majority of peasant children means that literacy is a rare skill, even among adults. Your learning is oral and practical. You learn the stories of your ancestors, the saints, and local folklore not from books but from hearthside tales. You learn about the seasons, the crops, the animals, and the weather by direct observation and experience. You learn right from wrong through the strictures of the church and the swift punishment of your parents or community elders. Your world is local, tangible, and immediate. The grand events of history, the distant kings and wars, are often abstract concepts, filtered through rumor and occasional pronouncements from the local lord or priest. The constant exposure to illness and death continues through your early childhood. You witness the suffering of younger siblings, the passing of elderly relatives, the sudden collapse of neighbors from unknown ailments. These experiences normalize death, making it an ever-present part of life rather than a distant, feared event. You learn to accept loss with a grim practicality, because grieving too deeply is a luxury few can afford when daily survival demands your full attention. Your diet, as you move beyond mother's milk, remains monotonous and often insufficient. You eat pottage, a thick gruel made from grains and whatever vegetables are available, perhaps a small piece of coarse bread, and rarely, if ever, meat. Hunger pangs are a familiar sensation, a dull ache in your stomach that you learn to ignore. You eat what is available, when it is available, and are grateful for it. Food is fuel, not pleasure. The occasional feast, often tied to a religious holiday or a successful harvest, is a rare treat, a chance to taste something richer, more varied. But these moments are fleeting. This period of early childhood, from roughly 3 to 7 or 8 years old, is a critical phase of hardening. You are molded by the relentless demands of your environment, shaped by labor, scarcity, and the ever-present threat of disease. You are stripped of the innocence and prolonged freedom that modern childhood offers. You learn quickly that life is not fair, that comfort is fleeting, and that your value is often measured by your ability to contribute. As you move towards later childhood, these lessons become even more ingrained, preparing you for a life of ceaseless work and an unwavering struggle for existence. You are, in essence, a small adult in the making, long before your body or mind has fully matured. As you navigate the transition from a dependent toddler to a child who can contribute, your concept of play is fundamentally different from anything a modern child would recognize. There are no safe, designated play areas, no plastic toys designed for specific age groups, no parental supervision focused solely on entertainment and development. Your playground is the world itself, a world teeming with hazards where every game carries an implicit risk. And even innocent amusement can quickly turn dangerous. Imagine yourself, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, feeling the rough texture of the wooden doll you carved yourself, or the smooth, worn stone you've chosen as a cherished plaything. Your toys aren't mass-produced. They are often natural objects: sticks, stones, pine cones, animal bones, or simple creations made from scraps of wood, cloth, or clay. A rag doll might be treasured, its fabric smelling faintly of the hearth and the accumulated grime of your home. A wooden horse, crudely carved, becomes the mount of an imaginary knight. These are not just playthings. They are extensions of your imagination, fueled by the stories whispered by the fire or the adult world you constantly observe. Your games are not just for fun. They are often a mimicry of adult tasks, a subconscious preparation for your future life of labor. If you are a boy, you might fashion a miniature bow and arrow from a flexible branch and a piece of twine, practicing your aim at imaginary rabbits or enemy soldiers. These are not toys in the modern sense, but tools of future survival, learning the rudiments of hunting or self-defense. You might play knights, wielding a stick as a sword, charging through the mud or dust with your friends, reenacting battles you've heard about or seen performed by the local lord's men-at-arms. These games are rough, physical, and often end with scrapes, bruises, or twisted ankles. There are no rules about fair play in the modern sense, no referees. Disputes are settled with shoves, punches, or bitter tears, teaching you early lessons in hierarchy and resilience. If you are a girl, your games might revolve around the household. You might have a small clay pot and pretend to cook, gathering wildflowers or berries for your imaginary stew. You'd mimic your mother spinning wool with a drop spindle or washing clothes by the stream. You might nurse your rag doll, whispering lullabies you've heard, preparing yourself for the very real demands of motherhood that will likely come to you at a young age. These are not just innocent games. They are rehearsals for a life of domestic labor, instilling in you the skills and attitudes expected of a medieval woman. But the most striking aspect of medieval childhood play is the constant, pervasive presence of danger. There are no fences around dangerous areas, no childproof locks, no designated safe zones. The world is open, wild, and unforgiving. Think about the simple act of playing near water. A stream, a river, a pond, or a well are common features of any medieval village or castle. These bodies of water provide life-sustaining resources, but for a child, they are deadly traps. You might be playing boats with a piece of wood, leaning too far over the bank, and suddenly find yourself in the cold, churning current, unable to swim. Drowning is a common cause of childhood death, a silent, swift end that strikes without warning. There's no adult constantly supervising, no swimming lessons, no flotation devices. You learn to respect the water through fear and observation of tragedies. Fires are another ever-present hazard. Every home has an open hearth, burning constantly for warmth and cooking. Imagine a small, curious child, drawn by the dancing flames reaching out a hesitant hand, or a loose spark landing on their coarse wool tunic, igniting quickly. Severe burns are common, disfiguring, and often fatal in an age without proper medical care. The stench of burning flesh, the screams of agony, are not distant horrors but potential realities within your own home. You learn to keep your distance from the hearth, not from gentle warnings, but from the vivid memory of a neighbor's child, terribly scarred, or worse. Tools and implements of daily life are another source of constant danger. Farming communities are filled with scythes, axes, sickles, and other sharp, heavy tools, often left carelessly where a child might stumble upon them. A young boy, imitating his father, might pick up an axe too heavy for him, losing control and inflicting a terrible wound. A girl playing in the kitchen might reach for a sharp knife. These are not sanitized, child-friendly environments. They are working spaces, and you are expected to navigate them with adult-level caution long before you have developed adult judgment. Cuts, deep gashes, lost fingers, and broken bones are not uncommon incidents. They are part of the daily tapestry of childhood injuries. Animals, too, pose a significant threat. Farm animals, pigs, cows, horses, even aggressive geese, are not always docile. A child might get too close to a protective mother pig, be kicked by a horse, or bitten by a dog that is not a beloved pet, but a working animal, often half-wild and poorly fed. Imagine the terror of being chased by an angry goose, its wings flapping, beak pecking, or the pain of a dog's bite, leading to wounds that easily fester and become infected. Wild animals, too, lurk at the edges of the village or forest. Wolves, bears, wild boars, a genuine, not imagined, threat to a lone child wandering too far from safety. The rustle in the undergrowth, the distant howl, instills a primal fear that modern children rarely experience. Even the most innocent-seeming games carry risks. Climbing trees, a universal childhood pastime, can lead to devastating falls. There are no emergency services, no quick ambulance rides to a fully equipped hospital. A broken bone, especially a compound fracture, could mean a lifetime of crippling pain, a limb that never heals properly, or worse, infection that spreads and leads to death. A head injury, a common occurrence in rough play, could lead to permanent disability or a swift end. You learn to assess risks not from a safe distance, but by trial and error, by witnessing the misfortunes of others. Supervision, as we understand it today, is a foreign concept. Parents are too busy with the endless demands of survival to constantly monitor their children's play. Older siblings, often barely out of childhood themselves, are frequently tasked with watching younger ones. This means that much of your playtime is unsupervised, spent in large groups of children of varying ages, forming their own social structures, establishing their own rules, and often pushing the boundaries of what is safe. You learn to be resourceful, self-reliant, and tough, because there's often no adult to intervene or offer comfort in the immediate aftermath of an accident. Imagine the atmosphere. The constant buzz of insects in summer, the biting cold of winter, the sounds of other children's shouts and laughter, often punctuated by sudden cries of pain or fear. The smell of dust, sweat, and animal manure in the village, or the damp earth and pine needles in the nearby woods. The taste of wild berries picked from a bush, some sweet, some bitter, some potentially poisonous. Your senses are heightened, constantly alert to both opportunities for play and the lurking dangers. This constant exposure to risk, this early initiation into a world that offers no protective bubble, shapes you fundamentally. You develop a practical understanding of cause and effect, a keen awareness of your physical limits, and a profound respect for the power of nature and the tools of human endeavor. You learn to pick yourself up after a fall, to patch your own scrapes, to hide your tears if you want to avoid a scolding or be seen as weak. Resilience isn't a character trait you strive for, it's a condition of your existence. The concept of a childhood free from responsibility, free from the shadow of danger, is an unimaginable fantasy. Your play, no matter how joyful or imaginative, is always underpinned by the harsh reality that life is fragile, accidents are common, and death is never far away. This perilous playground, demanding as it is, molds you into a person who understands the true meaning of survival, preparing you for a life where such resilience will be tested again and again. You emerge from these early years not just stronger, but profoundly aware of the precious, precarious nature of existence in a world that offers little quarter. Let's talk about something deeply primal, something that governs every waking hour in your medieval life. Food. Forget the endless choices of a modern supermarket, the brightly packaged snacks, the diverse, nutrient-rich meals you take for granted. In the Middle Ages, food is not a given. It is a constant, gnawing concern, a battle fought with every changing season, every unpredictable harvest. As a child, you experience this struggle perhaps more acutely than anyone, for your small, developing body is desperately in need of sustenance that is often scarce, monotonous, and barely adequate. Imagine waking with a hollow ache in your stomach, a feeling you've grown accustomed to since before you can consciously remember. This isn't just a morning hunger pang. It's a persistent, dull throb that accompanies you through much of your day, only temporarily dulled by the sparse meals you consume. Your diet, day in and day out, is astonishingly uniform. For the vast majority of you, whether peasant or even lower-level noble, it revolves around grains. Bread, coarse and dark, made from rye, barley or oats, is the staff of life. It's often dense, heavy, and sometimes mixed with chaff or even sawdust in times of severe scarcity. You chew it slowly, savoring its rough texture, feeling it settle heavily in your stomach, providing a brief respite from the hunger. Pottage is another staple. Picture a thick, lukewarm gruel, a concoction of boiled grains, oats, peas, beans, with whatever vegetables might be available, cabbages, leeks, onions, turnips, if you're lucky. It's often seasoned simply with salt if you have it, or perhaps wild herbs gathered from the hedgerows. It's bland, earthy, and provides bulk more than a diverse range of flavors or nutrients. This pottage is eaten with a wooden spoon, often from a communal pot, several times a day. You learn to eat quickly, efficiently, because there's never enough to linger and you must get your share before it's gone. Meat is a rare luxury, a feast day indulgence for most peasant families. Perhaps a small portion of pork or poultry after a successful hunt or slaughter, but mostly it's a dream. For noble children, meat might be more common but still not in the quantities or variety you might expect. Even then, it's often game hunted from the lord's forests or livestock raised on the estate. The taste of roasted meat, rich and savory, is a powerful memory, a fleeting moment of true satiety that contrasts sharply with the daily grind of bland grains. Dairy products, if available, come from your own animals, a cow, a goat, and are consumed fresh as storage is difficult. Milk, cheese, and butter are valuable, but their availability is seasonal and dependent on the health of the animal. Eggs, too, are a welcome source of protein, but often sold for coin rather than eaten by the family. Beyond the monotony, the greatest threat is famine. The medieval world is inextricably linked to the land and the weather. A harsh winter, a prolonged drought, incessant rains, or a pestilence that destroys crops can quickly plunge a region into desperate hunger. You would experience this viscerally. The crops fail, the communal stores dwindle, and the price of grain skyrockets, putting it out of reach for most. The pangs of hunger deepen, becoming a constant, debilitating ache. Your body, already accustomed to minimal sustenance, begins to waste away. Your limbs become thin, your belly distends from malnutrition, your skin becomes pale and flaky. During famine, the fight for survival becomes truly brutal. You witness adults scavenging for roots, bark, and wild greens, desperate to find anything that can be eaten. You might be sent out yourself, a small, gaunt figure searching for berries or nuts, knowing that a mistake could mean poisoning. The taste of hunger is sharp, metallic, a constant presence in your mouth. You see people starve, their faces hollow, their eyes dull, their bodies collapsing from weakness. This isn't a story from a book. It's the lived experience of countless children around you. The memory of famine once experienced scars you for life, instilling a deep, almost irrational fear of an empty larder. Even when famine isn't raging, periods of lean times are common, especially in late winter and early spring before the new harvests. Your body learns to adapt, to function on minimal calories, but this comes at a cost. Your growth is stunted. You are likely shorter and lighter than your modern counterparts. Your teeth may be poor, riddled with decay, a result of a diet high in carbohydrates and lacking in dental hygiene. Your energy levels are chronically low, making daily chores and tasks even more arduous. Concentration is difficult, your mind often drifting back to the persistent ache in your stomach. Children, with their faster metabolisms and rapid growth, are particularly vulnerable to malnutrition. Deficiencies in vitamins and minerals are widespread, leading to a host of debilitating conditions. Rickets, caused by a lack of vitamin D, leaves your bones soft and deformed, leading to bowed legs and stunted growth. Scurvy, from a lack of vitamin C, causes bleeding gums, joint pain, and extreme fatigue. Anemia, due to iron deficiency, makes you constantly tired, weak, and susceptible to illness. These are not exotic diseases. They are common ailments, the direct consequence of a diet that fails to provide the basic building blocks for a healthy body. Imagine the psychological impact of this constant food insecurity. Mealtimes are not joyful gatherings. They are solemn affairs, a ritual of sustenance. There is little conversation, mostly just the sounds of chewing and swallowing. The focus is on getting enough, on making sure your portion is secured. Food becomes the ultimate currency, a symbol of life itself. You learn to hoard, to hide, to be protective of any extra morsel. Sharing, while sometimes necessary, is done grudgingly out of necessity, not always generosity. For noble children, the experience of hunger is less direct, but still present. While their tables might groan under the weight of roasted meats, fine breads, and sweet treats during feasts, their everyday diet can also be surprisingly monotonous and lack essential nutrients. Game meat, while plentiful, is often lean, and vegetables, though available, might be limited in variety due to seasonal constraints. They too could suffer from deficiencies, albeit different ones. More importantly, the well-being of the noble household is tied to the productivity of their lands, and a famine that impacts their peasants ultimately impacts their own ability to feed their armies and maintain their status, albeit less directly on a day-to-day basis. They might not experience the gnawing hunger, but they understand the anxiety of scarcity from a position of authority. The feast days are a sensory explosion, a rare break from the drudgery of daily fare. Imagine the smell of roasting venison, the rich aroma of spices, the sweet tang of honeyed desserts, the frothy head of ale. These are moments of profound joy and communal celebration, but they are fleeting. You gorge yourself, trying to store up calories and memories against the lean days that inevitably follow. The taste of real luxury, of abundance, is a powerful contrast that makes the daily struggle even more stark. Even simple pleasures, like a sweet apple or a handful of fresh berries, are seasonal gifts enjoyed for a brief window before they are gone. You learn to appreciate these moments, to savor every bite, to understand the rhythm of the earth that provides them. Your relationship with food is one of profound respect, born out of a constant awareness of its scarcity and its vital importance. You don't waste food. Every crumb is precious. Leftovers are rare and valuable. This constant negotiation with hunger, this deep understanding of food as a battleground, shapes your character in profound ways. You develop resilience, resourcefulness, and a practical approach to life. You learn to be content with little, to find satisfaction in the simple act of eating, and to view abundance as a fleeting blessing rather than an inherent right. The ache in your stomach becomes not just a physical sensation, but a symbol of your existence in a world where survival is never guaranteed, and every meal is a victory. As you edge towards your 7th or 8th birthday, the brief precarious period of early childhood definitively comes to an end. For most, this transition marks the formal beginning of a life of labor, whether in the fields, the workshop, or the domestic confines of a manor. The concept of prolonged schooling, of a protected adolescence dedicated to self-discovery, is a luxury virtually unknown. Instead, you are absorbed into the adult world, expected to contribute your strength and learn a trade or skill that will define your existence. Your hands, once soft and small, begin to harden, your bones to ache from relentless toil. If you are a peasant child, your apprenticeship begins informally, an extension of the chores you've been performing for years. By now, you're expected to work alongside your parents for long hours, often from dawn until dusk, mimicking their movements, learning the rhythm of the land. Imagine yourself in the vast open fields, the sun beating down relentlessly on your back, or the biting wind chilling you to the bone. You might be tasked with weeding rows of nascent crops, your fingers caked with dirt, your back aching from bending over for hours. The monotonous motion, the constant pull of stubborn weeds, can feel endless. You might follow behind the plow, scattering seeds, your small hands struggling to maintain an even distribution. Or perhaps you are tending to livestock, guiding the cattle to new pastures, mending fences or assisting with the milking. Your fingers raw from the cold udders. The tools you use are often designed for adult hands, heavy and unwieldy for your smaller frame. A hoe might feel like a lead weight, a sickle's blade dangerously sharp and difficult to control. You learn through trial and error, often with a stern reprimand or a sharp blow from a parent if you falter or cause damage. There is no gentleness in this instruction. The stakes are too high. A mistake in the fields could mean a loss of precious yield, threatening the family's survival. The sensory details of this labor are intense. The smell of damp earth after rain, the sharp scent of cut hay, the dusty dryness of the fields in summer, the constant ache in your lower back, the burning in your shoulders, the developing calluses on your palms and fingers. These are your badges of honor, proof of your contribution. For children whose families possess a craft or trade, the apprenticeship is more formal but no less demanding. By the age of 7 or 8, you might be sent to live with a master craftsman, a baker, a blacksmith, a weaver, a carpenter, to learn their skill. This is often a profound separation from your birth family, a journey into an unfamiliar household where you are at the very bottom of the social hierarchy. You are not a guest. You are a servant, an unpaid laborer, and a student all rolled into one. Your days begin before sunrise and end long after dark, filled with menial tasks, fetching and carrying, cleaning and preparing materials. If you are apprenticed to a blacksmith, imagine the roar of the forge, the acrid smell of coal smoke, the intense heat radiating from the glowing metal. Your first tasks might be simple: pumping the bellows, carrying heavy loads of charcoal, cleaning the workshop. Your hands and face are constantly grimy, your clothes stained with soot. The clang of hammer on anvil is a constant, deafening sound. You watch, you learn, you slowly, painstakingly begin to emulate the master, initially with simple, repetitive tasks that strengthen your muscles and develop your coordination. The heavy hammer feels unwieldy, the hot metal dangerous, but you must learn to wield them with precision and confidence. Mistakes can be costly, leading to burns, injuries, or the destruction of valuable materials, and often earn you a sharp cuff from your master. If you are apprenticed to a baker, your mornings begin in the deep pre-dawn darkness. The smell of yeast, warm flour, and wood smoke fills your nostrils. Your hands plunge into vast troughs of dough, kneading it until your arms ache. You carry heavy sacks of grain, shovel coal into the oven, clean the bakery until it gleams. The heat of the oven is stifling, the work relentless. You learn the precise timing, the delicate art of fermentation, the strength required to turn out hundreds of loaves a day. Your body is always tired, your hands dusted with flour, your clothes carrying the permanent scent of bread. Noble children also face their own forms of child labor. For boys, this often means being sent away as a page to another noble household around the age of 7 or 8. Here you are expected to serve the lady of the castle, running errands, waiting at table, cleaning garments, and generally making yourself useful. Your days are spent under the constant scrutiny of adults, every action scrutinized for signs of disobedience or incompetence. You learn courtly manners, heraldry, and basic literacy from a priest, but much of your time is spent in physical service and observation. Later, as a squire, you'll endure rigorous physical training, learning swordsmanship with heavy steel weapons, riding large war horses, practicing with a lance, all in preparation for the brutal realities of medieval warfare. Your body is constantly sore, bruised, and exhausted, pushed to its physical limits. The sting of a training blow, the ache of overworked muscles, are daily companions. For noble girls, a domestic service is equally demanding, albeit in a different sphere. While they might not be scrubbing floors, they are expected to learn the complex art of household management. This involves long hours of needlework, mastering intricate embroidery, overseeing the other servants, understanding the complex logistics of provisioning a large castle, and learning medicinal remedies. They are often sent to other noble households as companions or maids of honor, experiencing the same separation and scrutiny as boys. Their work is intellectual and social as much as physical, but the pressure to conform, to be a suitable wife and mistress, is intense and begins early. They learn to navigate the intricate social dance of a noble court, where missteps can have significant consequences for their family's standing. Regardless of your social standing, the working conditions are harsh. There are no limits on working hours, no safety regulations, no legal protection against abuse. A master or parent has near absolute authority over you. Corporal punishment, from a simple slap to a severe beating, is a common and accepted method of discipline. If you are slow, clumsy, or rebellious, you pay the price, often physically. You learn to endure pain, to keep your complaints to yourself, and to conform. There is no concept of a work-life balance. Your life is work. Your body bears the indelible marks of this early labor. Your hands are rough, calloused, perhaps scarred from nicks and cuts. Your posture might be stooped from years of bending, your back permanently aching. You are likely stronger than any modern child your age, but also more prone to chronic pain, arthritis, and the accumulated wear and tear that will plague you in adulthood. You might be suffering from repetitive strain injuries, your joints swollen and stiff from years of the same motions. This early immersion in labor, this relentless grind, strips away any lingering vestiges of childhood innocence. You become mature, far beyond your years, practical, resilient, and utterly focused on the task at hand. Your dreams are not of faraway lands or fantastical adventures, but of a good harvest, a full belly, or perhaps one day owning your own small plot of land or workshop. You are not simply growing up. You are being forged in the crucible of medieval labor, shaped by sweat, pain, and an unyielding will to survive. The child laborer of the Middle Ages is not a romantic figure. They are a testament to the brutal demands of an unforgiving era, their aching bones and calloused hands telling a story of relentless toil and profound endurance. Let's turn our gaze to a pervasive, terrifying aspect of medieval childhood that constantly lurked in the shadows: sickness. In your modern world, a fever is often a minor inconvenience, a rash, a temporary irritation, and a broken bone, a treatable injury. For you, a child in the Middle Ages, any ailment, no matter how seemingly small, carries the potential for swift, agonizing death. You live in a world devoid of antibiotics, vaccines, anesthetics, and even a basic understanding of germ theory. Disease is not just a threat, it is a constant, invisible enemy, a ubiquitous presence that claims lives with horrifying regularity. Imagine the sickening dread that permeates your village when a familiar cough turns into a rasping wheeze, or a child's rosy cheeks flush with an alarming fever. These aren't isolated incidents, they are common occurrences. Measles, mumps, rubella, whooping cough, diseases that your modern self is inoculated against in infancy, are deadly scourges. You watch as your friends, your siblings, your neighbors' children succumb, their small bodies racked with pain, their breath growing shallow. The sounds of their suffering, the agonizing coughs, the delirium of fever, the quiet despair of their parents become etched into your memory. Take, for instance, the plague, the ultimate terror. You might hear hushed whispers of the pestilence or the Black Death sweeping through distant lands, but then it arrives, an unstoppable, terrifying wave. The first signs are often sudden, a fever, chills, immense fatigue. Then come the grotesque swellings, the buboes in the armpits, groin, or neck, growing large and agonizingly painful. The skin might blacken in places, a horrifying sign of the disease's progress. Imagine the terror of seeing a playmate, vibrant and full of life one day, struck down the next, their body writhing in torment, their face contorted by pain. The stench of disease, of unwashed bodies, of fear, permeates the air. There is no escape, no quarantine as we understand it. Families huddle together, praying, but often only succeed in spreading the infection more rapidly. You witness entire families wiped out, their homes left silent and desolate. The experience of the plague leaves an indelible mark, a deep generational trauma that reminds you of your utter powerlessness against nature's fury. Even more common are the everyday infections. A simple cut from a thorny bush, a scrape from a fall, or a splinter from a wooden tool can quickly become infected. Without antiseptics, the wound festers, swelling with pus, radiating heat, and sending searing pain through your limb. A blood poisoning that could be easily treated with antibiotics today becomes a death sentence. You might see a limb swell to an enormous size, turn black, and eventually necessitate a crude amputation performed by a barber surgeon, with no anesthesia and a high probability of death from shock or further infection. The thought of such a procedure, the screams of the victim, is enough to fill you with a deep, paralyzing fear of even minor injuries. Waterborne diseases are rampant. Dysentery, cholera, typhoid, these are constant threats due to contaminated water sources and primitive sanitation. You drink water drawn from communal wells, often shared with livestock, or from rivers that also serve as dumping grounds for waste. Diarrhea and vomiting become common, debilitating ailments, especially dangerous for children whose small bodies quickly dehydrate. Imagine the cramping pain in your gut, the constant urge to void your bowels, the weakness that leaves you unable to stand, your mouth parched, your skin dry and papery. You see infants and toddlers, particularly vulnerable, waste away in a matter of days from such diseases. Primitive medicine offers little comfort. The village wise woman, or local barber surgeon, are your primary caregivers, their knowledge a mix of traditional herbal remedies, rudimentary surgical skills, and deep-seated superstition. For a fever, you might be given an infusion of willow bark, which contains a natural painkiller, or have leeches applied to bleed out the bad humors. For a broken bone, it might be roughly set and splintered with wood, hoping it heals straight, but often resulting in crooked limbs or chronic pain. Infections are sometimes treated with poultices of herbs and mud, which occasionally work, but often exacerbate the problem. You might be told to wear an amulet, say specific prayers, or perform rituals to ward off evil spirits believed to cause illness. The lines between medicine, magic, and faith are blurred. and hope often rests more on divine intervention than on scientific understanding. The lack of personal hygiene further compounds the problem. Bathing is infrequent, soap is a luxury, and lice, fleas, and other parasites are common, contributing to skin infections and discomfort. Your clothes, often worn for weeks without washing, harbor dirt and microbes. The family home, even a noble castle, is far from clean. Vermin, rats, mice, insects, are constant companions, spreading disease through their droppings and bites. You sleep on straw mattresses shared with family members where these creatures may crawl and breed. Pain management is virtually non-existent. For any illness or injury, you endure the pain. There are no painkillers beyond rudimentary herbal remedies, and even those are often ineffective. You learn to steel yourself against physical suffering, to suppress cries and whimpers, because complaining achieves little and might even earn you a rebuke for weakness. The experience of pain is raw, intense, and inescapable, shaping your understanding of your own body's fragility and resilience. The psychological toll of living in such an environment is immense. You grow up with an intimate familiarity with death, seeing it as an ever-present companion, not a distant abstraction. The death of a sibling, a friend, or a neighbor is not a rare tragedy. It is a regular, heartbreaking occurrence. You learn to internalize grief, to accept loss with a grim stoicism that is expected of you. This early exposure to constant suffering and loss shapes your worldview, making you acutely aware of the precious, precarious nature of life itself. You might carry the scars of childhood illnesses into adulthood, a pockmarked face from smallpox, a permanent limp from a poorly healed broken bone, a chronic cough from a bout of whooping cough. These are not just physical marks. They are reminders of your survival, of the battles your body fought and won against overwhelming odds. The smell of burning herbs meant to purify the air, the sight of a weeping mother, the chilling silence in a house where someone has just died. These sensory memories are deeply ingrained. To survive childhood in the Middle Ages is not just a testament to luck, but to an inherent toughness, a resilience forged in the crucible of constant illness and the ever-present shadow of death. Your modern comforts, your vaccines, your access to clean water and effective medicine seem like an unimaginable miracle when viewed through the lens of this brutal, disease-ridden past. Shift our focus to the pathways laid out for your future, shaped profoundly by your social class and, for many, by the pervasive influence of the Church. Education in the Middle Ages is not a universal right or an expectation for all. It is a privilege, a necessity for certain roles, and often a practical apprenticeship into a predefined destiny. You are not encouraged to explore your passions or choose your own path. Instead, society has largely determined your future before you can even speak. For the vast majority of you, the peasant children, formal education as we understand it is non-existent. There are no village schools teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. Your school is the field, the hearth, the workshop, the forest. Your teachers are your parents, your older siblings, and the elders of your community who impart practical skills through direct instruction and relentless repetition. You learn the rhythm of the seasons, the planting and harvesting cycles, the care of livestock, the art of foraging, the crafting of simple tools. You learn the stories of your village, the local folklore, and the basic tenets of Christianity through oral tradition, through sermons in the church, and through the visual narratives of stained glass and painted icons. Literacy is a rare and precious skill, confined mostly to the clergy and a small percentage of the nobility. For you, the peasant child, the ability to read and write would be utterly impractical and largely unnecessary for your life of manual labor. Your communication is oral, your agreements are verbal, and your world is experienced through direct interaction, not through the written word. Imagine growing up in a world where books are exotic, almost magical objects, often chained in churches or monasteries. Their contents a mystery to most. Your understanding of history, of the wider world, is filtered through hearsay, travelers' tales, and the pronouncements of authority figures. However, The church plays a central role in your moral and spiritual education, regardless of your social status. From a young age, you are brought to the village church, a central hub of community life. You learn the basic prayers, the stories of the saints, the fear of eternal damnation, and the promise of salvation. The priest, often the most educated person in the village, is a figure of immense authority and guidance. He teaches you about right and wrong, about the virtues of obedience, humility, and hard work. Confession becomes a regular ritual, instilling a sense of sin and the need for repentance. The Mass, conducted in Latin, is a mysterious, awe-inspiring ritual, its symbolism absorbed through sensory experience, the smell of incense, the chant of the priest, the flickering candlelight. The Church provides a framework for understanding the world, a source of comfort amidst hardship, and a powerful moral compass. For children of the nobility, your education is vastly different, meticulously designed to prepare you for a life of leadership, warfare, or religious service. The moment you are old enough to be separated from your mother's direct care, often around 7 years old, your formal training begins. If you are a boy, your future is often geared towards knighthood. This process frequently involves being sent away as a page to another noble household, often a more powerful lord's castle. This is not a holiday, it is a critical part of your upbringing, designed to forge loyalty, instill discipline, and teach you the intricacies of courtly life away from the doting eyes of your parents. Imagine arriving at a strange castle, a small, perhaps frightened child, thrust into an environment where you are the lowest rung on the ladder. You serve the lady of the castle, running errands, fetching things, waiting at table, learning to be observant and discreet. You are taught basic etiquette, how to bow, how to speak politely, how to carry yourself with appropriate deference. Discipline is strict, often enforced through physical punishment, designed to break any willfulness and instill absolute obedience. Simultaneously, you begin your intellectual training. A resident priest or tutor teaches you basic Latin, how to read and write prayers, perhaps a little history, and arithmetic necessary for managing an estate. You learn the rudiments of heraldry, the symbols and lineage of noble families. As you grow older, into your early teens, you progress to the role of squire. This is a more physically demanding phase, directly preparing you for battle. You serve your knight, caring for his horses and armor, accompanying him on hunts and even campaigns. You learn to ride heavy war horses, to wield a sword and shield, to practice with a lance, all under the watchful, often critical eye of your knight. The physical training is brutal, endless hours of drills, mock combat, building strength and endurance. You are bruised, battered, and exhausted, but you learn to push through the pain, to develop the resilience and martial skill necessary to survive on the medieval battlefield. This isn't theoretical, it's a matter of life and death. The bonds formed with your knight and fellow squires are intense, born of shared hardship and mutual reliance, a precursor to the loyalties demanded in adulthood. For noble girls, their education is focused on becoming a capable mistress of a household and a suitable marriage match. While they might also be sent to another noble court for fostering, their training is domestic and social. They learn complex needlework, often spending hours embroidering intricate tapestries or garments, a skill that demonstrates their refinement and patience. They are taught to read and write, often in vernacular languages and sometimes Latin, primarily for religious texts and household accounts. They learn music, dancing, and courtly manners, all designed to make them accomplished and appealing marriage prospects. They are also trained in household management, learning how to oversee servants, organize supplies, manage a budget, and understand the intricacies of social hierarchy within the castle. Their education is practical, preparing them for the immense responsibilities of running a large estate and bearing children, all while maintaining social graces and religious piety. The concept of fostering out children is a crucial aspect of noble upbringing. It serves multiple purposes. It forges alliances between families, teaches the child loyalty to their new lord or lady and instills discipline away from the perceived softness of their own parents. But for you, the child, it can be a deeply isolating experience. Imagine being separated from your mother, your father, your siblings, and thrust into an unfamiliar household, surrounded by strangers, knowing that your every action is being judged. The emotional toll of this separation, the longing for your birth family, often goes unacknowledged. You learn to suppress your feelings, to present a stoic and obedient demeanor, a necessary survival mechanism in a world that prioritizes duty and decorum over individual emotion. Even for the most intellectually inclined, the availability of books is limited. Scribes painstakingly copy texts by hand, making them incredibly expensive and rare. Education is primarily rote memorization, repetition, and oral instruction. Critical thinking and individual inquiry, while not entirely absent, are often secondary to the assimilation of established knowledge and dogma, especially within the confines of the Church's influence. By the time you reach your mid to late teens, your education, whether formal or informal, is largely complete. You are considered an adult, ready to take on your designated role in society, a peasant farmer, a skilled craftsman, a knight, or a noble lady. Your future has been largely shaped by the circumstances of your birth and the expectations of your community. This early, rigid preparation, dictated by the stark realities of medieval life, leaves little room for deviation. You are a product of your environment, forged by the practical demands of survival, social structure, and the ever-present guiding hand of faith. Your path is set, and your training has equipped you, for better or worse, to walk it. Let's delve into a less comfortable but undeniably central aspect of medieval childhood: discipline and punishment. In your modern world, there's a delicate balance of positive reinforcement, timeouts, and reasoned discussions. For you, a child in the Middle Ages, discipline is often swift, direct, and frequently physical. It's a fundamental part of your upbringing, a method not just to correct behavior, but to instill obedience, humility, and fear of authority, both human and divine. You learn early that missteps carry immediate and often painful consequences. Imagine a small infraction. Perhaps you've been clumsy and broken a simple pot.
Or you've been caught slacking off a chore.
Or perhaps you've spoken out of turn to an elder. The response is rarely a gentle talking to. More likely, it's a sharp cuff to the ear, a stinging slap to the face, or a swift strike with a stick or a switch. Your parents, burdened by the constant struggle for survival and possessing absolute authority within their household, do not hesitate to use physical force to enforce obedience. This isn't considered abuse. It's considered necessary and proper parenting. The phrase, "spare the rod and spoil the child," is not just a saying. It's a guiding principle. The pain is immediate and real. The sting of the blow, the shock of unexpected force, the tears that well up in your eyes, these are visceral experiences. But beyond the physical pain, there's the humiliation, the public exposure of your mistake. There's also the fear of your parents' anger, fear of further punishment, and a deeper, more pervasive fear of social disapproval. You learn quickly that overt defiance is rarely tolerated and always punished. You learn to internalize rules, to anticipate consequences, and to act with caution. This extends beyond the home. If you are an apprentice in a workshop, your master has even greater authority. Your livelihood, your future depends on his satisfaction. A mistake in a craft, a moment of laziness, or a perceived insolence could earn you a severe beating. Tools used for work, like a leather strap or a heavy stick, might become instruments of punishment. Imagine the raw welts on your back or legs, the throbbing pain, the silent tears you shed in the dark, knowing there's no one to appeal to. Your master is within his rights to inflict such pain, and complaining would likely only lead to more severe treatment, or worse, being cast out, leaving you destitute for noble children. Corporal punishment is equally common even in the grand halls of a castle. Pages and squires expected to be disciplined and respectful, are subjected to strict rules and often harsh physical corrections. A tutor or a knight might use a birch rod or a switch to instill obedience, correct poor manners, or punish academic failures. The logic is that such pain builds character, hardens the spirit, and prepares a boy for the rigors of warfare, or a girl for the demands of courtly life, where composure is paramount. Shame and public reprimand are powerful tools, forcing you to conform to strict codes of conduct. You learn to control your emotions to present a stoic face, even when your body aches and your spirit chafes under the strictures. Beyond human authority, there is the ever-present terrifying shadow of God's wrath. The Church, through its teachings, instills a profound fear of sin and its eternal consequences. You are taught that God is all-seeing, that every misdeed, every impure thought will be judged. Confession, a frequent ritual, makes you acutely aware of your failings, of your inherent sinfulness. The priest's sermons, often vivid and graphic, describe the tortures of hell, the gnashing of teeth, the eternal fire for those who transgress. Imagine the terror this instills in a young, impressionable mind. A simple lie, a moment of greed, a flash of anger suddenly carries the weight of eternal damnation. This fear of divine punishment shapes your moral compass. It's not just about avoiding immediate physical pain, but about escaping a far more terrifying, unending suffering. You learn to pray, to seek forgiveness, to strive for piety, not just out of love for God, but out of a profound existential dread of His judgment. Superstition, too, plays a significant role. You are taught about malevolent spirits, witches, and the devil, figures that can influence your life, tempt you to sin, and bring misfortune. A sudden illness, a bad harvest, a lost animal, these might be attributed to evil forces, and you are taught rituals, prayers, or protective charms to ward them off. This adds another layer of fear and anxiety to your daily existence, a constant awareness of unseen forces at play. The concept of innocence as a protected state for children is largely absent. Children are seen as inherently fallen, born with original sin, and therefore in constant need of correction and guidance to lead them towards righteousness. This theological perspective underpins much of the harsh disciplinary practices. It's for your own good, for your soul's salvation, that you are made to endure pain and hardship. The psychological impact of this constant fear and physical correction is profound. You develop a deep respect, bordering on fear, for authority figures. You learn self-control, not always from internal moral conviction, but from the external threat of punishment. You might become outwardly compliant, suppressing your true feelings and thoughts, learning to navigate the world by anticipating potential punishments and avoiding them. This creates a generation of adults who are resilient, stoic, and deeply ingrained with the societal norms, but who may also carry emotional scars, a deep-seated anxiety, and a learned suppression of emotion. Imagine the relief when you finally pass beyond the age where such direct, physical punishment is common, when you've learned to internalize the rules, and your value to the community outweighs the need for constant correction. But the fear remains, a deep-seated memory that shapes your interactions with power, with authority, and with your own children when you eventually become a parent. The shadow of medieval justice, raw and unyielding, looms large over your childhood, forging you into an adult who understands the harsh realities of a world that offers little room for disobedience or deviation. It's a brutal education in power, control, and the unforgiving nature of a society built on strict hierarchy and absolute authority. Now, as the embers of our journey into the medieval past begin to cool, let's step back, take a deep breath, and allow the weight of those experiences to settle. You've walked in the footsteps of a medieval child,
Your senses bombarded by the smells of smoke and damp earth.
your hands calloused by relentless toil, your stomach aching with hunger, your body trembling with fear of disease and punishment. It was a childhood utterly devoid of the myriad comforts and protections you inherently expect in your modern life. Reflect on the sheer tenacity it took simply to survive. Imagine the resilience forged in those young hearts and minds, enduring constant physical labor from an age when you, in your modern life, would just be learning to read for pleasure. Picture the unyielding spirit required to witness death as a common occurrence, to bear the brunt of harsh discipline, and to navigate a world teeming with invisible threats. These children weren't just smaller versions of adults. They were survivors, molded by a relentless environment that demanded strength, practicality, and an unwavering will to endure. Their emotional landscape was different, their understanding of vulnerability and impermanence deeply ingrained from the earliest moments of their lives. Think about the profound contrast with your own existence. Consider the warmth of your home, shielded from the biting cold and damp. Envision the plentiful, varied food in your refrigerator, a stark counterpoint to the monotonous pottage and coarse bread that filled a medieval belly. Feel the soft fabric of your clothes, a world away from the scratchy, often unwashed wool that chafed medieval skin. Imagine the sterile environment of a modern hospital, the array of medicines, vaccines, and skilled professionals who guard your health from birth. Contrast that with the precarious birth on straw, the high infant mortality, and the terrifying reign of diseases for which there was no cure, only prayer and crude remedies. Consider the luxury of your prolonged education, the years dedicated to learning, exploration, and the pursuit of individual passions. For a medieval child, education was largely practical, vocational, or limited to the privileged few, preparing them not for self-discovery, but for a predetermined role in a rigid social hierarchy. Think about the concept of play itself. Your modern childhood is filled with safe playgrounds, organized sports, and toys designed to stimulate development. A medieval child's play was often mimicry of adult work, fraught with danger and largely unsupervised, fostering a ruthless self-reliance that would be alarming in today's context. Even the emotional landscape is starkly different. You grow up in a society that increasingly values open communication, emotional support, and a gentler approach to discipline. For a medieval child, emotional expression was often suppressed, tears quickly dried, and physical punishment a common, accepted tool for shaping behavior. The bonds of family, while strong in their own way, were often tempered by the constant threat of loss and the pragmatic demands of survival. So why, you might ask, do we delve into these uncomfortable truths? Because understanding the brutal reality of the past provides an invaluable perspective on the extraordinary privileges of your present. It fosters a profound sense of gratitude for the advancements in medicine, sanitation, technology, and social welfare that have transformed childhood from a perilous gauntlet into a cherished, protected phase of life. It reminds you that the comforts you enjoy are not inherent rights of existence, but hard-won achievements, built upon centuries of struggle, sacrifice, and gradual progress. The echoes of medieval childhood still resonate, though perhaps subtly. That deep-seated human resilience, that capacity to endure hardship, that fundamental drive to protect and nurture the next generation, these are legacies passed down through the ages. But the conditions under which these traits were forged are, thankfully, largely relegated to the history books. As you lie there, in your safe, warm bed, let the stories of those distant children remind you of the fragility of life, the immense value of every comfort, and the incredible journey humanity has taken. Be grateful for the clean water you drink, the food you eat, the soft clothes you wear, the education you receive, and the freedom you have to simply be a child. The children of the Middle Ages, with their aching bones and calloused hands, fought a daily battle for existence that your modern self can barely imagine. Their struggles paved the way, in countless small unseen ways, for the world you inhabit now. Let their story be a quiet reminder of your own incredible fortune, a gentle nudge to appreciate the peace and security that cradle you tonight.